What's up, future respiratory therapist? In this video, let's talk about metabolic alkalosis. You ready? Let's dive in. Alrighty, as I said, metabolic alkalosis, or perhaps maybe not. We'll dive into that here in a second. But first, Respiratory Coach Academy. Do me a favor, head over to respiratorycoach.com. Check out the TMC and the CSE boot camps there, designed to aid and assist you in successfully completing your credentialing exams on the first attempt. If you would, check that out. I would greatly appreciate it. Let's look at metabolic alkalosis. Now, this is a blood gas, and if you're wondering yourself, why is there a question mark up there? I'm going to tell you why. Because I believe this blood gas that you're looking at right here is potentially one of the more difficult blood gases to, let me put it like this, it can be a trap. Okay, you can look at this blood gas and you can do your little arrows. You can look at this. You go, okay, my pH is alkalotic because it's elevated, and my CO2 is elevated. That causes an acidosis. My bicarb is elevated. That causes an alkalosis. And so alkalosis is a metabolic alkalosis, but because the CO2 is elevated, it's compensating. So we have a partially compensated metabolic alkalosis with moderate hypoxemia. That's the way this blood gas interprets. But what if I told you that's not what it is? Would you believe me? Let's talk about it a little more. Here we go. Let's take a scenario approach to this, okay? You're called to the ED to draw an ABG on a 37-year-old female presenting with intractable vomiting. The patient appears to be in slight discomfort with no acute respiratory distress noted. The patient is bradypneic, including a saturation of 86% on room air. What is your interpretation of these ABG results? It's the same ABG we looked at last time. 751, CO2 is 48, PaO2 is 52, bicarb is 34, saturation is 85%. What's your interpretation? It's a metabolic problem, it's a respiratory problem. And you're like, why would it be a respiratory problem? I'm gonna show you that in a second. But let me show you the clues that point to why this is a metabolic disturbance. First of all, you've got intractable vomiting right there. So let's just start with that, right? So you say, okay, intractable vomiting, that means it's uncontrolled. They can't get this to stop, okay? The patient is in discomfort because they can't stop vomiting, but there's no acute respiratory distress noted, and the patient is bradypneic. Why is the patient bradypneic? And they are hypoxemic, okay? Now, you have to think about this. If you had a metabolic alkalosis, an elevated bicarb causing an elevated pH, how would the respiratory system compensate for that? You have to think about this. So if your pH is high because of a high bicarb, then your CO2 has to elevate to bring that pH back down. So what we see is that the respiratory compensatory mechanism for metabolic alkalosis is hypoventilation to allow the CO2 to rise and bring that pH back down in and within normal range, right? It's a true story. Now, when we hypoventilate, we can cause hypoxemia. So now it's all starting to make sense, right? I want to read something to you out of the 13th edition of Egan's. This is the 13th edition. This comes to us out of page 298 in the 14th chapter, okay? It says this right here. However, it was originally thought that you couldn't hypoventilate to compensate for a metabolic alkalosis because of our hypoxemic receptors. They would say, you can't do that. That was the original thought. But it says right here, however, metabolic alkalosis blunts the hypoxemic stimulus to ventilation. So neurologic receptors sensitive to hypoxemia become less sensitive in the presence of alkalemia, which allows us to hypoventilate. It goes on to say, individuals with PaO2 levels of 50 millimeters of mercury may still hypoventilate to PaCO2 levels of 55 to 60 in order to compensate for this metabolic disorder, okay, or disturbance. And so while it doesn't seem like it, it's like, why is this person hypoxemic and why is our CO2 elevated? It all comes back to the fact that there is a metabolic disturbance causing and alkalosis. And in this case, it's a loss of acids. It talks about it right here, a loss of hydrogen ions, typically is gastrointestinal. And the first thing listed right there says vomiting. That's what's happening right here. So here you say, got it. This person is vomiting. This is a metabolic disturbance, not a respiratory. And if you're thinking to yourself, I still don't know how it even can be a respiratory. Well, let me show you. This patient, you're called to the ED to draw an ABG on a 67-year-old female presenting with shortness of breath. Presentation is completely different right off the bat, right? 37-year-old for vomiting, 67-year-old for shortness of breath. So huge difference already. Upon entering the room, you observe a barrel chest, digital clubbing, and pursed lip breathing. What'd I just say? 67-year-old, shortness of breath, barrel chest, digital clubbing, pursed lip breathing. That all says what? That's right. You're thinking chronic hypercapnia, COPD. That's what this picture is painting. The patient is in mild respiratory distress in the tripod position. Clue, another one, obstructive lung disease, tripod position, to use the positioning as a mechanical advantage for the respiratory muscles in the diaphragm to help calm this distress and this shortness of breath. The patient is tachypnic and tachycardic with an SpO2 of 81% on a 2-liter nasal cannula that she also wears at home. Everybody sees the picture here, right? COPD patient, home oxygen, in the ED with shortness of breath. Here's the blood gas, same one as last time. We have elevated pH, elevated CO2, elevated bicarb. So how is this still not a metabolic problem? How is this a respiratory problem? Well, this is a respiratory disturbance because what we know is that this picture that's painted up here, COPD, chronic hypercapnia. What is chronic hypercapnia? How does the body compensate for a chronically high CO2? It raises the bicarb. So the bicarb elevates to bring the pH and to keep the pH in that 735 to 745 window. And so that's how the body compensates for respiratory acidosis, for which this patient lives with chronically. So that's why the bicarb is elevated. Okay, Joe, but why is the pH alkalotic? Because this CO2 right here that we said is elevated is really not elevated. It is decreased. Now I know what you're thinking, like, wait a second, but it's 48 and normal is 35 to 45, and you would be correct. But for this patient, CO2 is not 35 to 45 normally. This patient's CO2 may live somewhere closer to 60. So now when you say, oh, I see it, this person is hyperventilating. Why are they hyperventilating? And how do we know they're hyperventilating? Because they're alkalotic here, caused by a decrease in their CO2. Why? Because of the shortness of breath, leading them to hyperventilate. Now, why are they hyperventilating? Because they are hypoxemic. You see, hypoxemia will cause hyperventilation, or can cause hyperventilation. Completely opposite of the prior example we looked at, where the patient was also hypoxemic, but they were hypoventilating. Why? To compensate for that metabolic alkalosis. The hypoventilation caused the hypoxemia. In this scenario, the hypoxemia is causing the hyperventilation. So you got to learn, you got to keep all this stuff straight with you. What does hypoventilation, what can it cause? Hypoxemia. Makes sense. I got it. I'm ready for it. What's going on here? Patient's hypoxemic. That's why they're hyperventilating. How would you help this patient? Fix the hypoxemia. Or maybe not fix it, but correct it back to their normal. They're on a 2-liter nasal cannula. They probably need a little bit more than that to get them up to around the 88 to 92% range where they live, and they will stop hyperventilating in and when we do that. Okay, so let's look at these two things side by side, because I just want to give you a quick rundown of it. This blood gas right here, when we talked about it, we interpreted it, metabolic alkalosis. If you interpret it by your rules, you will get a metabolic alkalosis, right? 751, 48, 52, 34, 82%. I don't know why that white bar is staying up there, but it's getting on my nerves and it's messing me up. So just bear with me, okay? That blood gas can be a metabolic alkalosis as the root problem, or it could be a hyperventilating patient who lives with chronic hypercapnia. And in that case, it is what we refer to as acute alveolar hyperventilation superimposed on chronic ventilatory failure. How do we know which one it is? You have to look at the clues in the description. When we talked about it being metabolic, the patient was vomiting. There was no distress. The patient was bradypneic, decreased respiratory rate less than 10 breaths per minute. Why are they only breathing 8, 9, 10 breaths a minute? They are hypoventilating to compensate for the elevated bicarb. On the other side, look at all the clues we had. Shortness of breath, barrel chest, digital clubbing, pursed lip breathing, tripod position, tachypnea. Sounds like a patient with an underlying pulmonary problem. And in this situation, that's exactly right. Why are we alkalotic? Because our CO2 is lower than this person's normal CO2 range. Why? Because they're more hypoxemic than they typically are. That's why they're hyperventilating. Okay, so that is a blood gas that can be interpreted 2 different ways. You got 2 different potential interpretations. The clues is where you'll find the answers to which one it is. Okay, hey, I'm Respiratory Coach. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe and come follow me on all the socials. Don't forget about respiratorycoach.com, your place to find the tools you're looking for to aid you in passing those credentialing exams. And don't forget about The Shift, the very first ever and only respiratory care-based reality show right here on this channel. Check it out. Tell me what you think. I'd appreciate your feedback. Hey, average is easy. Don't be it.